guys, I am here today with what is technically an ARC review, but actually this book is already out. I had two books up for review that technically came out last Tuesday, and so last Monday I put up my review of Friends to Lovers, which you can go ahead and watch, and that one was a Friends to Lovers book. And today I am bringing you a treasure hunter meets writer second chance romance that, again, I read an ARC of, so thank you to Edelweiss and the publisher for my ARC, but it is out, and if you're interested in it, you can go and get it right now, and boy, do I think you should. So the book that I'm talking about today is Heart Marks the Spot by Libby Hubsher. I am not sure if I am saying her last name right, but this is Libby's, at least her fourth book that I've been able to find. I have not read anything else by her, however, but the thing at the end of the book that was like, read for more from Libby, blah, blah, was a baseball romance, and so I may have to go read more right now. To focus on Heart Marks the Spot, though, this is the story of Stella and Huck. Stella is a treasure hunter. She is someone who was raised by two people who were explorers. They did maps. Her dad was more of a treasure hunter. Her mom was more of a mapper who literally flew planes and did mappings of things. But she was basically raised on the sea. She was raised on finding things, treasure hunting, and she has kind of made that her life. It is unclear to me how Stella is making her money or any money at all, but she is basically trying to be a more realistic version of Indiana Jones, essentially without the teaching career. Every single summer, Stella meets up with her three friends, Teddy, Gus, and Zoe, and they go out together. They've been doing this for about 10 years, and they go treasure hunting together, as Stella has been trying to find this gigantic diamond, the elephant diamond, that was the basically life's mission of her father as well, and she's sort of trying to continue that. Stella's mom left her and her dad when she was about 11 or so, and she's not heard from her since. And then when Stella turned 18, her dad, who said that, when she turned 18, she would be able to accompany him on his treasure hunting expeditions, also just basically abandoned her and left her all alone. So Stella has this really, really serious personal commitment to continuing this, but also proving kind of to her parents that she might have been worth sticking around for, even though they didn't, and she has never heard from them since. Teddy is the bankroller of these missions, so this is why money doesn't come up, at least around this. Teddy is a trust fund boy. He, boarding school, trust fund. His parents have this incredible fortune, and he met Stella on the beach the day that she was abandoned by her father, and basically took her under his wing and has been bankrolling their expeditions ever since. Gus used to be in the Navy. He is someone who has also majored and studies archaeology, and so he's kind of the scholastic backbone of this. And Zoe is a lawyer by trade, but she is also an adventuress herself. She goes diving, all that type of stuff. And so, like I said, every summer, these four folks get together and they go adventure hunting. Huck is a writer. He is the author of a very, very famous set of 7 books that he has been writing basically ever since he came out of college. You hear in the beginning of the book that his fiance recently left him and his father recently died. You will get more on that as the book goes on, but at the beginning, basically, you just know that Huck's last book was very, very poorly received, and he is under contract to write another book, and he is just completely and totally blocked. Both Stella and Huck do something out of the ordinary. Stella has planned a not summertime trip with her friends to Iceland to go looking for an axe of a Viking that will help lead her to the diamond. And Huck has been shipped off by his agent basically after nothing else has worked, therapy, hypnotism, all this stuff to try to get him unblocked. He's just basically been shipped off to Iceland by his editors and agents and the publishing company to try to get unstuck. Stella and Huck meet at a bar in Iceland, and it's the kind of meeting where they suddenly just have this incredible urge to talk to this person, to talk to them in ways they've never talked to other people. It's not lust at first sight, although that's definitely a part of it. It's not just that. It's two people who just feel this incredible magnetism and orientation towards each other, and that sets off their journey as Huck accompanies Stella and her crew to go and find the axe. They find it, and all along, you know, Stella and Huck are becoming closer and closer. What's really interesting about this book is that for a second chance romance, it gives you the first and the second chance, but not in like alternating back and forth timelines. What it does is kind of splits the book into, it's not quite two halves, it's more like a third and the next 2/3. A little bit maybe closer to half and half, but you get this initial meeting in Iceland where Stella and Huck meet and, you know, begin developing feelings for each other, and then you get the second half, which is set a year later. It is not a spoiler because it's on the back of the book, to basically say that Stella and Huck become very, very close. They sleep together, and then with absolutely no explanation, Huck leaves. And Stella is once again abandoned by someone, and she takes that really hard as someone who has the past that she has, and there's no explanation. But like a year later, Huck's new book is published, his face is everywhere, and it is very clearly loosely based on her. Huck needs to write a second book, and his publisher suggests that he goes back to the place he got his inspiration the first time. And so against like all sense of self-preservation, Huck asks to accompany Stella and her crew on their next treasure hunting mission. And because Huck is a friend of Teddy's from boarding school, Teddy says yes. And so the second part begins. A lot of times second chance romances, when you're getting the first and the second chance, and this is a dual POV, so we see Stella's side and we see Huck's side. Although I will say that Huck is very reticent in part 2 about why he left, which is kind of annoying because he knows why he left. The only reason that that wouldn't be constantly part of his thoughts is because the author has to keep it from us until the opportune moment for him and Stella to have their, you know, come to moment. But anyway, it is a dual POV, and I liked that it gave you like the first block uninterrupted, so we can watch these characters falling in love with each other, and to very abruptly have that section end and go into part 2, I think really helps us to also see like how Stella is feeling as well, which is she is just like, this was a very beautiful like beginning of something that is just very abruptly cut off. And then, like I said, it picks up with part 2. I really liked that. Not that I mind going back and forth in time, but this just allowed us to really get settled with what this couple could mean to each other, before, you know, diving right into the stress of him being on the ship in the part 2, which had more meaning because we know exactly why Stella is so upset that he's there. Honestly, I think what makes this book, though, feel so emotionally deep and interesting is not just that we really get this time to watch Stella and Huck fall in love and then fall apart and come back together again in this like uninterrupted train, but it's how much Libby has thought about the characters around this story, because this primarily takes place, or almost entirely, if not entirely, takes place while Stella and her crew are out treasure hunting. It's a very closed cast of people. So I've already talked about Stella's relationship with her parents. You find out that Huck had a very, very contentious relationship with his father, who has, like I said, died. And his father was always telling him that he was worthless and that being an author was like, you know, beneath him, and he was always going to fail. You learn certain things about Teddy that do show up later in the book, so I'm not going to get into it, but he is also as the book goes along, goes from like the trust fund playboy to someone who clearly has something going on that the book unpacks while that goes along. And then even in part 1, you learn that Gus and Zoe have gotten together. And this is something that they're like, Stella is like a little concerned about because she doesn't know how them kind of pairing up is going to affect the whole group dynamic, because this group at this point is her family and they're really important to her. And you see in Huck's POV chapters that Zoe and Gus are also grappling with this in the way that they talk to Huck, and knowing that them changing the pattern, changing the dynamic is going to really affect Stella in particular. And so, you know, even though Gus and Zoe aren't as like deeply emotionally developed as Teddy, Huck, and Stella, there's just like such a commitment to making this book not just about Stella and Huck, but making it about this, you know, tight group of 4, then 5 people, maybe kind of 5, Huck doesn't really count, who have just like been each other's people for a really long time for a variety of reasons when they were needed. And now, you know, 10 years into this friendship, things are adjusting, things are changing. Like I said, this started about the time Stella was 18, going to 28, and that's a really, really interesting period of life. Even though Gus and Zoe are older, Teddy is a little bit older than her. It's just, there's like just such a commitment in every chapter to all of these emotional lives and all of these people that like you're just like really invested in all of the characters and not just Stella and Huck, which is just really, really important. I'm the type of person that loves Indiana Jones, National Treasure, like all those like history-based things. So there is a really interesting, obviously the first part takes place in Iceland and we're talking about the history of this Viking who's not real, but it's like interesting and it's fun. And then the second part of the book takes place in the southern hemisphere. So they, I think, started Key West, they're in Cuba at one point, and then they're in the, you know, ocean environs around that part of the world. There is a lot of talk about scuba diving and diving underwater, which as someone who has a scuba diving license was really fun. And then again, I like the treasure hunting aspect. There is no discussion in this book about the fact that Stella is a white lady looking for an African diamond, and I do have questions about how that was dealt with in the end of the book. Maybe we should have thought that one through a little bit more, especially when in Iceland they find the Icelandic axe they were looking for, and then they seem really shocked that Iceland wants to keep the axe, and I'm like, guys, come on. So even though there is some really interesting research that has clearly been done into, obviously Libby is an author and knows a lot about Huck's part of the world with publishing and the cons and interviews and all those types of things that authors have to go to, and clearly research has been done on, you know, sailing, scuba diving, you know, climbing, like treasure hunting. They talk about permits they need to get to like be like doing treasure hunting in these waters, and how you get permits. It's not a long part, but like there's a level of research that was clearly done there, and so that would be the one part of this book where I was like, maybe we should have thought about that part a little bit more. Another reason that I'm not giving this book a full 5 stars, even though it is like certainly a solid 4 stars for me, is that the ending does feel a little bit unfinished. After giving us a very deep dive into Stella's relationship with her parents or lack thereof, Huck's relationship with his father or lack thereof, and so much being about the changing dynamics of this family of 4, found family of 4, the end of the book kind of shalalas a lot of that off into the end, in a way that felt a little unsatisfying in places, and I'm not going to tell you which places because that would definitely be a spoiler. But yeah, the ending was a little bit like, after such a really strong emotional core, kind of felt like it just kind of, you know, wandered off into the sunset. But altogether, like the bulk of the book was really well written, and endings are hard. And so you just kind of have to go into it knowing that maybe. That's why you watch these reviews, probably. Like I said at the top of this video, this book is out now, so you can make these decisions for yourself. If this sounds like a fun treasure hunting, armchair travel, second chance, unique second chance romance that sounds interesting to you, you can go out and check this out from your local library or get it from your local bookstore right now, however you get your books, and make up your own opinion on this one. I certainly am very interested in reading some of Libby's other books because I really enjoyed this one. Obviously, I am a sucker for a baseball book, so I may start there. But yeah, this is definitely a book that makes me really interested also in what Libby will do next, because I just loved the emotional core, like, family of characters in this book that was really well done, and I would love to see that again in a different story. So I am glad that I hung on to this book, and sometimes I don't always review arcs if I know the deadline has passed, but I was so interested in the concept of this one. I'm really glad I read it, and I hope that this review has been helpful to you. Thanks, guys. Bye.